Take a pit stop for all things NASCAR with the Four Tire Change podcast. Here is your host, Dawson Iserlo.
It's the Four Tire Change podcast. Dawson Iserlo with ESPN Southwest Louisiana as the round of 8 has reached its final destination. One more race before the championship for cutoff in the NASCAR Cup Series. Also, a little bit off the track news. We'll get to that after the Talladega recaps. Talladega, of course, was on Sunday. It's always an exciting one. We knew it was going to have some big storylines, right? Drivers trying to find their way into the championship four. And for the second consecutive week, right, some of the themes here is guys who have an opportunity just not being able to stay out of trouble. And as a result of this race, and we'll talk about who wins it and, what they do to their future, but this playoff bubble is pretty set in stone. That's the interesting thing. It's going to basically be must-win territory for the drivers who aren't in the championship four right now. Part of that is because Chase Briscoe went ahead and got it done. This was, I wouldn't call it the best Talladega race ever, but it had some real intrigue to it. I was enjoying it. I enjoyed the back and forth. I enjoyed the runs that happened. You had that great kind of stretch towards the end there before the final caution where there's different lines, there's different strategies. You had, even SVG's getting up there. You're wondering, could SVG really pull something off here? You had the different, Bubba had a run, then he drops back. And so, there was a lot of stuff going on in there. And Chase Briscoe just hung around there. And, he hasn't been a guy who has a crazy reputation on super speedways or anything like that. But to be the one who kind of outlasts this after the green-white checkered and finds a way to get a win, puts himself in the championship four. Briscoe has had some stretches this year where he's really turned it on. And, I think when he went to that Joe Gibbs Racing car, there were some question marks, he had, didn't have the best equipment at Stewart-Haas, but, I think you take a look at how dominant that last Xfinity season was for him in the 98 car. I always knew the potential was there, and he's really realized some of that this season. And so, to do it right away when he gets in that ride kind of probably solidifies and proves to anybody who was doubting him that he's going to be a factor in this series for a long time. And, now he's got a chance to go to Phoenix and win this whole thing. And, we take a look at the bubble now. The JGR cars have a chance to get all 4 in. Now, they've got 3 in really, really good position. So Hamlin and Briscoe are in, right? They have wins, so they are locked in the championship four. We knew that. But what I mentioned, right, some of the issues for Blaney and Chase Elliott, who's just had a dreadful round of 8 so far. Joey Logano as well has not had it. And William Byron runs into some trouble at Talladega. So right now, you take a look at it, it's going to be Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson getting in on points, basically unless somebody in that bottom 4 wins the race at Martinsville. Now, very possible. We know Penske's brought a ton of speed to Martinsville year in and year out. They've had chances. They've won some of those races in the past. We know Blaney's done it from time to time. It's crazy to go into a final race, and it's 32 points, I think it is. Like, nobody really has a chance to make it on points unless Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell wrecks out in the first few laps, and just has a 0 in the point column. That's always possible, but also at a place like Martinsville, right? You don't expect it. Outside of an engine failure, it's not likely you're going to get in some sort of high-speed collision that puts you out for the race. So this is going to be all in, push all your chips to the middle of the table for those 4 drivers. For Chase Elliott, for Ryan Blaney, for Joey Logano, and for William Byron. All 4 of them really have nothing to lose. They have to win the race. And so, it's a place where maybe you try and manipulate the stages a little bit, right? You're not worried about stage points. You got to go win the race. And that's going to make it, I guess, for an interesting Sunday. Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin, we talked about, they don't have anything to gain here other than just another trophy in the mantle, grandfather clock. Everybody likes winning at Martinsville, so those guys can race just free and easy. Like I said, for Larson and for Bell, you're not 100% locked in, so you'd like to kind of hang out. But if you get some stage points in the first stage, you can really relax. It's about being conservative. I don't know how those race teams will choose to handle that, knowing that really all you need to do is avoid a big, some sort of accident. Obviously mechanical failures and stuff like that. You're always trying to avoid those things, but I don't know if you have any way to try extra to avoid them. But that's, if nothing changes here, that's going to be your championship four. And I think this is as good an opportunity as Denny Hamlin has ever had. I think he'd probably prefer, and I don't know who he'd prefer to race against in the Champ 4. I really don't. I think he's probably fine with Briscoe, a teammate, guy who he feels comfortable against. Larson is going to put the pressure on him if he's there. But man, the Hendrick car is just a disappointing playoff showing for them, right? When you figure in I guess it's not that disappointing when you get 3 of your 4 cars into the round of 8, so I shouldn't overblow it. But like Chase has just had a miserable round of 8, and Larson's going to have a chance to get in here, but there's a realistic situation in which Hendrick gets nobody in the Champ 4. I mean, all it would take is a Penske win, and Bell finding a way to get a little bit higher than Larson in points on the day. So I guess that's the other thing I said about the conservative nature of the way Larson and Bell are going to race. Well, that does depend. If you do get a new winner, then those two are now racing for one spot. So that's where I don't expect and also it's Martinsville. It's not like, it's not like super speedway racing where you go, well, do you consider at the end of a stage like dropping out of the main pack or something? Like, no, it's Martinsville. You're going to be racing the whole time. So I don't know, man. This is going to be a fun one. And we've had some news about the championship format. I don't know what it's going to look like. No one knows what it's going to look like. It seems like it's going to be at least a multi-round or a multi-race championship round. We'll have to wait and see on that stuff. But it is going to be interesting at least. Let's finish this format out, right, and see what happens this week. As far as Martinsville is concerned for picking a winner, I've really considered picking one of those Penske drivers, man. I think they've shown you this speed time in and time again. Now, it's been a little bit different this year. They haven't quite had it at times. I'm tempted to go with Ryan Blaney, but ultimately give me Christopher Bell to win and get his way into the Final Four. And, he's going to be likely in there without a win, but I think he's, going to go ahead and solidify it and leave no doubt. So I'll take Christopher Bell to win the race. Off the track, I mentioned we've got the playoff format stuff that's just ever evolving. I don't know if we're going to get anywhere near a conclusion here in the near future. I did also feel the NASCAR video game, NASCAR 25, has dropped recently. I've been having some fun with it. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's one of those things. It was especially the way, the NASCAR gaming community, like you go back some of the great games, the original NASCAR Thunder and the NASCAR Heat and, all these different games that have come out. And the EA Sports run with NASCAR 08, 09, like those games matter a lot. And I think when you're talking about raising the brand awareness of your sport, and we've had all these conversations throughout the year and in the offseason about what NASCAR needs to do to kind of get to the forefront again of the American sports fan's mind. Video games are such an easy tool for that. Look at what the college football video game has done for college football in the last year or so. Coming back, remember it. If you're not familiar with that story, they basically had to get rid of it because of legal reasons with paying the players. Well, now they're able to play the players and the game came back, and everyone loves it, and it broke records in sales. It was just a complete missed opportunity. And the last couple, times that the NASCAR games were made, they weren't made, and they didn't have everything. They didn't have the bells and whistles they should have had. iRacing jumps in. Professionals, they know what they're doing, right? The iRacing series has been massively successful on PC, and NASCAR drivers use iRacing as a training tool, and is it William Byron who came up like racing there? Like that stuff matters, and to have another game out on consoles where the average consumer who's not maybe all the way locked in NASCAR can turn on their game, drive around a track, and go, hey man, this is a whole lot of fun. I think that's really important for the sport. So I wanted to throw that in there. I've been having fun with the game. Know plenty of you probably have as well. Last thing we'll say here, I did mention there's some off-the-track news. Spire has decided to part ways with Justin Haley. That's not entirely surprising the way things were going. It seemed like Spire was going to go in a different direction. And they land themselves a pretty nice little free agent signing. They go with Daniel Suarez, who, of course, is out at the 99 car. We all expect that Connor Zilisch, the Xfinity superstar, will move into that car for Trackhouse. Suarez, who's, done a nice job for Trackhouse. I mean, he was the cornerstone driver that helped them start that organization. Things didn't always go the way, and he saved his job a couple times, but now they decided to move on, and Spire, I think, gets an upgrade in that seat. So good for Spire, good for Daniel Suarez. Hoping those two teams or those two entities, Suarez and his team, can be good for each other. And I think it makes, it's pretty good to have he and Michael McDowell as teammates. I think that's a couple different skill sets you can maybe mesh together. And we'll see what that looks like. So that is your silly season news of the week. Of course, Martinsville, everything on the line here. Who's going to make it into the championship 4 and join Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin? Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson are in the best position. But you, of course, have William Byron, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Elliott, all with a chance, all likely needing to win the race, but all having a chance to move on as well. That'll do it for the 4-tire change this week. We'll be back with a championship preview next week. Should be a lot of fun. Stay tuned.